And that's an abrupt cut out there from Pink Floyd. That's because that's off of Dark Side of the Moon, and a lot of those songs just blend right from one to the other. So Chop, that was the end of it. That song was Brain Damage, and before that you heard Skyclad with The Great Brain Robbery off of Folkomon, and a weirdo instrumental song called Mosquito Brain Surgery by Spastic Inc. off of Ink Complete. I'm Ken the Metal Professor. This kind of wraps up Mostly Metal here on WVLP. So next week, Sunday at 8 p.m., we'll start a brand new show. I have no idea what the theme will be for next week. Who knows? Maybe there won't even be one. Maybe I'll just roll dice and pick songs that way. Or I'll pick a favorite letter of the alphabet and just make all the songs start with that letter. Maybe I'll do that. What's your favorite letter of the alphabet, Sean?
S.
S? All right, so you heard it here. Next week will be brought to you by the letter S, and all the songs next week will start with the letter S. That'll be interesting. Or maybe I'll pick bands that start with the letter S, because that's like the best letter. That's the best heavy metal letter in the alphabet. There's a lot of good stuff in S bands. So we'll see. I'll have to think about that. But 103.1 FM is the number, WVLP is the name, and Valparaiso, Indiana is the location. And that wraps it up for Mostly Metal. And now, with a great fanfare, it is time for the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program.
Your insubordination will not be tolerated.
And it is now time for the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program here on WVLP. I'm Ken the Metal Professor, and I have two guests with me in the studio, Mr. Sean Spinks.
Hey, how you doing?
And Mr. Oscar Rios.
How's it going this evening?
Thank you for coming in to talk about wrestling. We have 40 minutes until the top of the hour when I got to shut off the feed to the microphone. So let's see what we can squeeze in. So the reason that you guys are here this evening is to talk about Backbreaker Wrestling, among other things. And that is a new promotion that started up in Northwest Indiana. The first show was back in October.
Yeah, October 14th.
And the next show is coming up on February 3rd, so pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So just to get the ball rolling, can each of you, one at a time, just say a couple of things about your role in this organization and what you're doing to help keep it going along?
I'm actually the owner of Backbreaker Wrestling. Wear a lot of hats. I'm owner, current booker, and Oscar is my second in charge and head official.
Yeah, Sean came to me after a few years of being out of this business and asked me if I would come out and help him. He first asked me if he was going to start another promotion. I said, well, who's going to work with you? And he's like, well, hopefully you do. So I guess that was his way of asking me.
So you're the head official. How many officials do you usually oversee during a show?
Typically 2 to 3 officials per show, depending on the how many matches we have on the card.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And how many wrestlers do you oversee on the show?
Per show, it's usually around 14. Overall, right now, more than I can keep up with.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like he has a little bit more room in his schedule. So if you need to, delegate anything else, it sounds like he can handle it at this point. So with one show under your belt, talk a little bit about some of the results from that show. Did you establish any titles? Did anything happen particularly to, elevate anybody to sort of like the person to watch in Backbreaker already?
We actually did. We haven't crowned any champions yet. At this show, Winner Takes All, we'll crown our first tag team champions. That show was just to put our guys out there and let everyone know, like, hey, this is what we got. This is what's going to set us apart from other wrestling. And I mean, it'd be hard to pick one standout guy to be like, this is the guy to watch, because all the guys at Backbreaker Wrestling are so talented.
Okay. What are your goals with the promotion as you started up? I mean, you probably have some short-term goals. I'm assuming are going to be get people to come and get interested. But where do you hope to take this long-term?
Long-term, what I really want to have is that local promotion that everybody knows, and everybody knows you're guaranteed a good time when you go there. I grew up with some of those promotions and just have fond memories of going to local shows, and that's really what I want out of it. A good, solid family show that everyone around knows, hey, when you go there, you're going to get your money's worth.
We were talking before we came on the air here to get ready that one of the features of the show that makes it family friendly is there's an earlier start time, at least so far. So your shows start that generally, like, it sounds like there's a long-term trend, but the first show you had and now the next one coming up, I think doors open at 5:30 and the show starts at 6. And you said there's another reason for that other than just being a little bit more family friendly.
Oh yeah, definitely. I grew up a huge fan of NWA and WCW, and anyone that watched during that time knows they always started at 6:05 on TBS, and that's for something. It was just a little something for me to sit back and some of the older guys that are around and be like, "Hey, we start at 6:05 now too."
Mm-hmm. So do you make people watch from the back, like on black and white televisions with big giant cable boxes, just to get that feel of?
That's a good idea.
So, Oscar, you said that you had taken a little break from the business before Sean roped you back in to become head official. What had you been doing before then?
Well, Sean had talked about the local promotion that everybody knew that he had been to. And I was actually part of a promotion back in the mid to late 90s, even into the early 2000s, called the NWIWRAP.
Okay.
And that was a local promotion that everybody that came always had that good time. We always had a good feel. We always had a nice crowds come to the show, and Sean himself was part of that crowd. He would come to those shows all the time, and that's the kind of feel I would like to get back to.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have that promotion once again as well.
Were you one of the officials?
Actually,
Or
back
did you
in that
work
day, I was a manager.
Okay.
I was the Bobby the Brain Heenan, so to say, of the
Come on.
NWWA.
Say your name.
My name back in that day was the Love Machine. So that's what I went by. But I always grew up idolizing Bobby the Brain Heenan. Absolutely.
Okay, so you have the safer job. You don't run around getting punched in the face all the time.
Correct.
Basically.
Yeah, I'm not getting beat up and put through tables and stuff like that anymore.
That's smart thinking.
Exactly,
I appreciate
yes.
that. And what about you? Before you decided to start up this promotion, what activities did you have going on in wrestling overall?
I had previously wrestled for about 14 years. I did that, and then on the side here and there for other promotions, I would put their cards together. I would book their shows, do some promoting for shows here and there. And I was actually the one that took the time off. I took time off, and then when I got ready to come back, I looked around and I was like, I took the time off to start a family. Mm-hmm. And then coming back as a family man, I wanted that product. And wrestling is taking a turn, and it's not that it's a vulgar or a bad product, but it just didn't seem as fun anymore. And I really wanted to put the fun back in it and have the huge characters that everyone would remember. And the transition from wrestling, I was never a great athlete, so I struggled a little bit in ring, but I'm a lot more comfortable in the role I'm in running the promotion now.
Mm-hmm. You took a break to start a family and just have a quote unquote normal life for a little while, and then you got this little voice in your ear saying, this is something I really want to do." So there had to be a day where you sat down with your wife and said, "Honey, I want to start a wrestling promotion." Now, have you had full support, or did she kind of roll your eyes and go, "Okay, whatever"? How did that work?
She is never, ever not supportive of me. She was when I wrestled, she was my manager, and I brought it back up, and of course, there's money concerns and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But then she even sat down and was like, "I know you know how to do this, and if you're going to do it, just do it right." So she has been fully supportive. And then I started giving her prices on everything. And
Did you officiate the wedding?
No, I did not officiate
Ah.
the wedding. Although they did do a couple wrestling moves though.
that's true. Some of our wedding pictures are me body slamming my wife.
Nice. When you are looking around for people to bring into the promotion and work on your show, what's your and it's I'm going to say philosophy, and I don't know that we need that lofty a word, but what do you look for when you're getting guys to work for you and represent you in Backbreaker?
With what I'm looking to do with Backbreaker, I always tell guys up front that the tempo and the outline for a show, what I'm looking for is essentially like a WWF 1985 to 1992 style of show. A lot of big guys in that era. And tag teams, I look for tag teams a lot. But in individuals, one thing I'm always looking for is like I want all the guys that are good guys, that everyone knows it's a dependable guy, that's a good guy, that everyone likes to be around him, and that's really what's making the company tick.
You've only had the one show so far, and you've got the second one planned. How many? I mean, the second one is imminent. How many do you have in the queue definitively after that?
Well, the plan is throughout this year to run one show every other month. And, as that progresses, if they do good, then, of course, in 2019, transfer to a show every month. So, we're a lot's still in the planning phases. We're still working stuff like that out. But right now, we're going to go every other month this year.
Do you have anybody that fits your mold about the people you've already invited in to work and other people that you might be inviting to come in that you sort of anticipate being, quote unquote, regulars, people that would, over the longer term, just start getting associated with Backbreaker? There's so many promotions around here, but each one has a few workers that I associate with that promotion. Like, I know I'm going to see this person when I go there.
Yeah, definitely. Right now, Johnny Motley, the Top Guns, the Masters, the Universal Bomber,
Trog,
yeah, definitely Trog the Caveman. Oh man, if you've never seen him, you want to come see him.
He's on my list of things to ask about.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Off the top of my head, yeah, those guys, and we're cycling other guys in and out, looking for our complete show. So there'll be a lot of different names in and out, but you can definitely count on those guys to be on every show.
Okay. Let me take just a quick second here, because it's the halfway point past the hour, to remind everybody that they're listening to WVLP 103.1 FM in Valparaiso, Indiana. I'm Ken the Metal Professor. The show is the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program, and I'm talking with Sean Spinks and Oscar Rios from Backbreaker Wrestling. Backbreaker Wrestling has a show coming up very soon, February 3rd, and it's in Griffith, and it's called Winner Take All. So what's the genesis of that title? What are they going to take?
Like I said earlier, this show we will crown our first ever champions, period, and it will be our tag team champions, and that'll be the main event. Will be the Masters against the Top Guns.
Nice. Any favorites yet, in terms of who might who might be if we looked on a line in Vegas? Because I've seen the Top Guns before. I have not seen the Masters.
We actually did an online poll on our Facebook page, and the Top Guns edged out the Masters just by a couple votes.
I think Vegas odds has the Masters winning. I had a friend that lives out there, put them in there. So they're out there.
Inside information. You heard it here first on WVLP. Well, if you don't mind, let's just kind of let's run the card. I don't know, and not necessarily just in order of first match to last, because you want some surprises. But I sort of messily all over my paper jotted down some of the matches I'd seen already listed. So I'll just kind of call them out, and you can say what you want about them. One of the matches that I saw on Facebook is going to be Hardcore Harry against the Beast.
Yes, a Wild Man Beast and Hardcore Harry. If you've never seen either one of them,
definitely need to come out and see Beast. He
Yeah,
is,
Beast
definitely a
Beast is
character.
400 pounds. Wildman Beast is 400 pounds, completely out of control. And Hardcore Harry is just that guy that just takes a beating and keeps coming back. It'd be easy to look at it on paper and be like, Beast is easily 2 to 3 times his size, but you just can't count Hardcore Harry out.
He's got all that extra fur to cushion the blows.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
Did you put something in his contract to force him to wrestle with a shirt on?
No, absolutely not.
Uh-oh.
Maybe you can get him. Maybe you can get him a razor before the match. How does that sound?
I don't know if he could be talked into it.
Maybe as official in the match. If you were officiating that match, you could, when he comes out to the ring, just tell him, leave it on. Leave
Exactly. That could very well
it on.
happen.
There are going to be kids present.
Exactly.
You had mentioned the Universal Bomber, and at least what I saw earlier, he's going against TK0.
Yes. Universal Bomber was with us last show, him and his manager, Scott Powers, and this will be TK0's first time at Backbreaker Wrestling. It's a match I'm really excited about. TK0 is just a young kid raring to go. He's got an uphill battle with Universal Bomber, though.
Yes, he does. Back in the day, I managed the Universal Bomber back in the NWWA, and he is a wild man. He's pretty crazy and tough, and got a lot of experience out there.
Yeah, we've seen Universal Bomber around this area easily since the mid-'90s.
Mid-'90s.
A little speculation on whether it's always the same Universal Bomber or not, but time will tell. And Scott Powers is bringing him ready, and like I said, that should be a good one.
If there is that little controversy about it, and you want one of those old school 80s wrestling throwbacks, maybe someday we'll have a tag team of Universal Bomber #1 and Universal Bomber #2.
Actually, we did have that at one point.
Really?
Back in the midnight. There was 2 of them. The other one is kind of disappeared. I'm not quite sure where he is.
Maybe he'll turn up. Xavier Black and Dave Allen going against the Crimson Dragons, Jared Kripke and Crimson Dynamo.
Okay, Xavier Black and Dave Allen have recently rechristened themselves the Bromantics. They can't quit talking about how good each other is, and this will be their first time there. I'm real excited to have them on board. I've worked in the past with Dave Allen. At one time, I was his tag team partner. This will be my first good look at Xavier Black, and then we did have Crimson Dragons in for the October event, and they wrestled the Masters. So that'll be a good high impact, fast paced match.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned being Dave Allen's partner, and I don't remember if you said this before, and I kind of missed it. What name did you wrestle under?
Cade Lee.
Cade Lee. Okay. Trog the Caveman, you mentioned earlier, which he has a very interesting photo there on Facebook against. There was some argument going on at a show I saw he was on. Is it Luis Rojas or Louis Rojas?
Luis Rojas.
Louis Rojas, and he's taken on Trog the Caveman.
Yeah, Trog is,
very unorthodox.
Yeah, very unorthodox, very hard hitting, and him going against Rojas is just. I've always said the only thing Rojas is bad at is being 6'5". That guy in the ring, he just controls the ring when he's in it. It'll be very interesting to see his clean, aggressive style against Trog, who is just everywhere. He is very unorthodox, as Oscar said. As
an official of these matches we've talked about so far, which is the one that you would least look forward to officiating just because of the mess that match would be?
Well, the mess, I say Trog the Caveman was pretty tough. That was definitely, last show, it was kind of hard to give instructions and to tell him to break the ropes and everything else. So I say Trog the Caveman, or probably the tag match at the end is going to be chaos, I would say. It's going to be 2 teams fighting for the belt. That's going to be tough.
Right. And that could be, there's different kinds of chaos. One is chaos born out of, I don't want to say that Trog the Caveman isn't going to be competitive, but, there is competitiveness there's chaos born out of the competitiveness, right? Where people can get a little out of hand, and then there's the chaos born by the fact that he's Trog the caveman, and he's just not going to listen to anything you tell him.
Exactly. Yes.
Those were the 4 matches that I became aware of as I put the Crack WVLP research staff onto trying to figure out what would be going on at this card. So what have we missed?
Dashing Dick Davis and the Sunset Strip sensation Johnny Motley, which they actually have history that goes back to their days in Fire Pro on opposite sides. They were in tag teams, and this will be their first ever singles encounter. And they're not big on each other.
No.
Not at all. I refereed some of those matches with their tag teams, and a lot of knockdown, drag-out affairs. They do not like each other at all. It's gonna be a rough one.
Dick Davis has already been very vocal that he is just going to out-wrestle and out-man Johnny Motley. And then, like I said, the main event is the Masters against the Top Guns. That's Kurt Joseph and Shooter McGavin against Ace and Highball. And in October, both teams just... I mean, they just went absolutely to the limit. The Masters will absolutely do anything to win. And, them against the Top Guns in the main event for the tag team titles is going to be absolutely must-see.
Good. Do any of these folks have Facebook promos out there where maybe they're talking smack about each other that folks can go try to dial up?
Those will be coming out this week on the Facebook page for Backbreaker Wrestling.
Okay, because I'll keep an eye out for those, and I'll grab the audio and put them in the feed next week for people to listen to on the air here if they don't catch them on Facebook. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 6 matches altogether.
Yes.
And is that the full card? Do you anticipate adding more?
That should be the full card.
Okay.
I try to stick to 6 matches, and we give all our matches, good 15-minute time limits, and really let the guys go out there and get after each other.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I do I've been to shows where there's lots of matches, and those metal folding chairs that are often when you get to my age, after 2.5 hours of being in those metal folding chairs, that's sometimes that's plenty enough. So. Let's talk about the venue a little bit. So this is running in Griffith, Indiana, and what's the name of the venue again? The
It is St. Mary's Hildebrandt Hall.
Is there a history or a reason behind that selection of location?
There is. I may have wrestled in the building once or twice, and then we had some events there, probably say 10 years ago or so.
Yeah, probably 10 years ago. But I also remember. When I first got into this business, that was one of the first halls I ran in, probably 96, 95 maybe. So for me, there's a lot of history in this very building. I've been in it quite many times, and a lot of history for me. One of my first shows ever was in this building.
Oh, that's neat. So this is a long-time wrestling venue, and so it's not a place that when you contacted them to see if you could rent it out, they said, you want to do what?
Yeah, they hadn't done it in quite some time, and Oscar was with me when we were going to look at different venues. And when you walk in the place, like I said, being an old NWA fan, there's just something so very wrestling about the building itself. It's high arched wood ceilings. It's a wood basketball court floor, old wood bleachers that wheel out from the wall. There's something just old and tough about the building, and I think it just fits the Backbreaker attitude very well.
Do you anticipate that kind of being the home of Backbreaker for the time being, or do you anticipate expanding geographically?
For the time being, yeah, for right now. We've been looking at some other places here and there, but nothing too solid. It's I'd really love to belt our whole first year out in that building.
Sure. One of the things I've done with folks that come in to talk here on WVLP on the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program is take a little break from the business side of things and just play a little 10 questions. Are you game to... Nothing serious.
Sure.
No trick questions or anything here. Because, we like to really get into the psyche of people that are in the wrestling business here on this radio station. And so I've got some carefully selected questions that will help me kind of chart out your frame of mind and things like that. So I'll give each of you a chance to answer the questions, and the answers don't have to be the same. This is not marriage counseling or anything like that.
Okay.
Question number 1. This is really important. Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Dogs.
This is tough, Sean, because
It's not that I dislike dogs; it's allergy.
okay, that's acceptable. And I say, I've never had to uninvite people from coming back, but I think you're the first person that's ever answered cats to that. But I feel you, because I'm allergic to cats, and so I don't dislike cats, but I have to pretend I don't like them for exactly that same reason. So, as a promoter or as an official, would you rather have a small but noisy and raucous crowd, or a large but kind of indifferent crowd?
I would say a smaller crowd that was into the show. A rowdy crowd that it is into the show, but not necessarily being disrespectful. As we can see, there's crowds that can be disrespectful at times. But, I would rather have the smaller, more louder crowd. It gives me that old school type feel, like with the old NWA in the studio kind of feel is what it would give me.
Yeah, it goes without saying, being from the money spending standpoint, that I will take anyone's money that wants to come to a show. But I definitely do want the family crowd. So a smaller Intuit crowd, it's really better for the show.
Good. What's the seating capacity of the venue? Do you know?
525.
Let's hope it gets packed as these shows go
It would
on.
be great to fill a place.
Spider-Man or Batman?
Spider-Man, 100%.
Spider-Man.
Wow,
As a kid, that's all I watched.
It's unanimous. As a promoter and as an official, would you rather bring in and work with somebody who's known to be a really big draw but has attitude problems and is hard to work with, or somebody who may just be a marginal draw but they're laid back and easy to work with?
I'll take that right off the bat. Definitely laid back and easy to work with. I've spent enough time in wrestling that the guys that are difficult to work with, over time that just wears on you and everyone there. So definitely easy to work with.
Yeah, I would have to say that. I've worked with people that are easy to work with and not so easy to work with. And I've worked with the stars that can draw and not draw as much. And I would probably go with that cannot marginal draw, but easier to work with, because we don't need any drama, so to speak. Trying to stay away from that kind of stuff.
Do you find it difficult to adjust, or what strategies do you use to adjust if you have somebody who's, people can be difficult or not difficult to work with behind the curtain, but out in the ring during the flow of a match, do you find that there are variations in terms of how easy it is to work with people during the match as an official?
Variations, as in, you're working with different people out there, different matches. Everybody's got their own personalities, so to speak, their own strategies, so to speak. So yeah, definitely can be different. Each match, you never know what to expect out there. You never know what they're going to try to get away with when my back's turned or something like that. And yeah, especially in a tag team match when there's only one of me and there's four of them out there. So yeah, it definitely can be difficult from match to match.
So
Absolutely.
You're saying that sometimes people don't respect your authority? Was that what I'm hearing?
Well, maybe, probably not behind my back. They try to get away with as much as they can.
But they all know that Oscar is iron, and he will DQ you and then throw you out of the building.
There you go.
Deep dish or thin crust?
That's deep dish for me.
It's thin crust, absolutely.
Ooh, more controversy. Raw or SmackDown?
SmackDown for me.
Yeah, SmackDown for me. If you're talking about today, yeah, it's SmackDown. Back in the day, probably be Raw. But
I think I'm there too, and I watch all my wrestling on Hulu because we did the cord cutting thing, so I get the hour-and-a-half distilled version of Raw, and sometimes it's really interesting to see what their decisions were about what to leave in and what to cut out. But SmackDown, you get to see the whole thing, so sometimes it flows a little bit better, and I just think as a whole, I enjoy that one a little bit more. Fruity Pebbles or Cocoa Pebbles?
I'm a chocolate lover. Got to be Cocoa Pebbles.
Oh, man, I'm like neither on this. I'm like Honey Nut Cheerios. Well,
They're like chocolate or fruit. Come on. One of the two.
well, let's go with Fruity Pebbles then.
Okay. Now, is your daughter a big cereal eater just yet?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Any of it, though. She's not picky.
Mine's 13. One of my daughters is 13, and she basically has lived on cereal her entire life. So they can make it if if that turns into a thing. As a fan, do you prefer watching matches that are a little bit more in the cruiserweight style, or kind of in the, you're talking about the old school, kind of the really old school big guys fighting it out style?
Well, I'm an old school guy. I grew up, started watching wrestling probably about 1983, just before the rise of Hulkamania. And I'm used to characters, larger than life characters. People that you would look at and say, that guy's a wrestler. I mean, you could just tell. So, I mean, I'm more keen to the larger than life style characters. And that doesn't necessarily mean huge guys, but, guys that you could tell as a wrestler right away. So I'm more apt to that.
Yeah.
I would say I definitely lean to the bigger the character. I mean, the smaller guys definitely have their place, and you can't take anything away from the work they've put in to get where they are. But I would definitely say I lean towards the bigger guys, bigger characters.
Okay. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Too easy. Star Wars.
Trek.
Okay. You've just redeemed yourself from the cat question, though. I'll let you know that. I think you're the first person ever in this thing where I've done this that picked Star Trek. So
It started out maybe the first half of life was Star Wars, but once I hit Trek, that was it, man.
Yeah. I started with Trek, and I've always been. I'm fine with Star Wars too, but if I had to pick one, it would be Star Trek. Maybe not some of the more recent series, but okay. As a promoter, organizer, business person behind everything, the person who's in charge of the whole kit and caboodle, would you rather deal with having to set up a cage match or having to deal with a Falls Count Anywhere match where at the end of the show there can be chairs everywhere and dents in walls and all sorts of stuff?
I'm definitely going to go with cage match because then the chaos is contained, and I don't have building damage to pay for, so cage match.
Well,
What about officiating?
officiating, obviously, the cage match is easier, depending on the style of cage match. I mean, if you're talking old school style, the referee was just there to open up the cage door. Nowadays, sometimes you can have pinfall or submission inside the cage. But actually, I have to say, Falls Count Anywhere matches to me are a little bit more fun. Maybe a little bit more work, but I have a little bit more fun out there. And plus, if it's a Falls Count Anywhere, you're only there to count the pin. So if they can hit each other with chairs, you don't have to worry about disqualifying anybody.
Yeah. I'm just as somebody on the total other end of things, just watching, both kinds of matches before. The cage matches are very fun to watch, and when there's a Falls Count Anywhere match, especially one that really does spill out into the crowd, and there's chairs going everywhere and getting hit into walls and garbage cans, every once in a while, I get taken out of the match by thinking, oh, somebody's going to pay for that, and oh, there's a broken thing, and I just don't. In terms of the cleanup that comes afterwards, I don't know if that's something that you don't look forward to or not.
Well, I've been part of that cleanup before.
Yeah. Cleanup. And actually, we had an occasion like that at our October event. I'm in the back watching on one of the monitors, and we had Gabe the Brave Juarez out there and Ryu Shinzaki. And Ryu Shinzaki picked up one of the building's chairs and threw it at Gabe. And I'm standing in the back like, I'm going to have to pay for that. And then I was like, somebody go check on Gabe. Make sure he's okay.
Well, that was the 10 questions. Thanks for playing along. I've learned absolutely nothing, but it was fun anyway.
Those are always fun.
So what's your favorite thing about doing this so far?
Just getting back into it and being around a locker room again. I really did miss that. And having... It's good to have that wrestling family back. And that even when I was wrestling, that lacked for a couple years. I was bouncing around, wrestling here and there, and just no place felt like home. And this go round, it feels good to have a home and to be making a place for other guys to call home.
That's great. And how about you?
Yeah, I'd have to say it's a lot of the same thing. When I first started, we had that home base, and we had a group of guys that we worked with all the time, whether it was here, and sometimes we'd work a show on a Friday here, and we'd go up to another promotion Saturday way up in Streeter, Illinois somewhere. And we were like a family. You know, we always were together and a place to call home. And, you know, like Sean said, you get around that locker room again with a bunch of guys that you can call a family. It's just a lot of fun, you know.
Do you have a lot of awareness when you're working a match and, you know, you're playing the role of the referee and the official, and you're trying to stay neutral and call it down the middle and not be swayed by anything, but the fan in you sneaks out a little bit. You're in the middle of a match where you know that these two guys are just killing it. They're tearing the house down. This is one of the greatest matches you've been a part of. How hard is it to not be able to demonstrate that too much and stay in that referee mode?
Yeah, it can be a little hard, especially when I'm fishing in a really good match. It's hard for me not to be a fan and realize that I'm there to be neutral, and it's not supposed to matter to me who wins and who loses. But yeah, at times I can. It's tough, but I've learned to contain that when I'm out there in the ring. Try not to show it very often. It can get a little frustrating when somebody's not following instructions or not obeying the rules. That can get a little frustrating as well. So there's two sides of that. Absolutely.
When I do this show, I try to concentrate on local Northwest Indiana events and regional things, but Royal Rumble's coming up next weekend. That's a big milestone in the wrestling world. Who do you got to win it?
I'm split right now between Elias and Jinder Mahal.
Elias?
Oh, I love Elias.
Elias is great. Yeah, I mean, he's funny. He really makes me laugh. I don't say that too often for many mainstream WWE guys these days, but he really makes me laugh. I'd have to go with Elias if I had my choice.
Okay. We have just a couple of minutes left here before I've got to turn the programming back over to other people on the station. If somebody's on the fence about coming to this show that's coming up February 3rd, winner take all at the St. Mary's Hildebrandt Center.
Hildebrandt Hall.
Hildebrandt Hall in Griffith, Indiana. If they're on the fence, what do you have to say to them to change their mind and make them come out?
If you're on the fence, I'll tell you right now, you will definitely get your money's worth at this show. All the guys on this show are passionate about wrestling, and they love this business. And those guys are all gravitating towards backbreaker wrestling. And when you have guys that are just in love with the business, passionate about what they're doing, they're the guys that are going out there and fighting the absolute hardest.
Yeah, I would have to say definitely if you're looking for a family-friendly event that is based on old-school style wrestling, something that you really don't see too much anymore, I would say definitely come out and give the show a chance if you want to see something different.
And this is going to be a family-friendly show. If parents are worried about the safety of their children, you as the official are there to make sure the audience stays safe. And even in the event that Trog the Caveman gets out of hand, you will put yourself in between that danger in the crowd to keep a safe environment. Is that correct?
That I will do. I will make sure that all the children are safe. Correct.
That is excellent news. How can people stay up to date on this? You want to shout out your social media links, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is you've got?
We're on Facebook and just Backbreaker Wrestling on Facebook. Everything gets posted to that. And then when we have events, all the updates also go on there. Okay, great. Thanks so much for coming in. Do you have did we miss anything that you wanted to make sure to tell people about?
Where can they buy tickets in advance?
Our advance sales tickets are at Creative Comics in Griffith, Indiana. It's right down the street from the hall. That's Creative Comics, 216 East Main Street, Griffith, Indiana. And then Hammond Muffler in Hammond, Indiana, 6135 Kennedy Avenue. And tickets are $10 for adults, and then kids under 10 years old and senior 60 plus are $5.
Great. And I've been out to Creative Comics. I love it how James Rowan, the owner, is a big supporter of the wrestling scene in lots of different ways. That's terrific.
Yeah, he has always been huge for me in supporting it, and he's really on board with everybody. You go in there, and any local show probably has a flyer up in the store.
Sure.
Yep, that he does.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, both very much for spending a good 45 minutes here at WVLP, 103.1 FM in Valparaiso. It's just about the top of the hour, and so if I press all the buttons correctly, you should hear Punk Rock Radio starting up in just a couple of ticks.
Thank you.